What's up? Shabai Carcino here. We're going to try to get this done this way since 0 notifications was sent out when I went live from the house. I don't know what happened. It's just a long list of things I got to correct. But John seemed to have gotten a notification. And now they're going out mobilely. But from the desktop, I guess it's not working. It just is what it is. This is like the 5th time I've made this video within the last 15 minutes. Because it wasn't working. Now, hopefully we can get past all the nonsense, but it doesn't look like we're going to be able to do that again. So, whatever this problem is, hopefully YouTube can get it fixed. It was a colossal mess that transpired today, and I just don't understand it at all. But, hey, it is what it is. Yeah, it's a lot going on right now. It's always going on late at night. Now, anyway, let me speak on this before, it's obvious they want to shut it down and don't want the video distributed. And people are doing the best they can to block notifications, period. And it's just not making any sense whatsoever. Anyhow, let's move forward. I was sent Joe Budden's video once everyone was telling me that Charlemagne went in on Joe Budden. So I went and checked out what Charlemagne said, and basically he was blaming Joe for his business acumen and basically just saying, Joe's already, you about to leave and go sign another bad deal. It's just, it was very abrasive and disrespectful, really, for somebody who's supposed to be your friend. That's the kind of conversation you think you would have with somebody off camera if you looked at them as a friend or you guys have collaborated in the past. Shane has basically been the same person forever. He's not a boss. So for him to even open his mouth to say anything is like it's like a travesty. Like, how dare you type of moment. He's not qualified to speak on the situation, really, because it's something that's alien to him. He knows nothing about how the podcast game works. So he was actually on the outside looking in. And we all should be a little bit more respectful when it comes to Joe, because Joe was right about one thing, because I even said, Joe signed bad deals before, which, yes, Joe did sign a bad deal when he was at Complex. But what they were doing, we couldn't really say it's a bad deal because it's unprecedented. What they were doing was unprecedented at the time. It's like a John Doe business. you're basically, people are trying to figure it out as they go. Meaning that Spotify, who decided to get into the podcast game, really was trying to figure it out as they go as to how we're going to monetize this or market it. Remember, Spotify does music, and streaming music and streaming a podcast are entirely different. These are two entirely different entities. So when you're trying to look at it on a scale of a music basis, it's different. And this is why people are listening more to podcasts, and that these streaming services are picking up podcast shows more than music CDs, because people don't listen to music CDs longer than they listen to podcasts. The audience retention is a lot higher. So it's a major difference in the field. Now, Joe Budden was bringing up very key points in the contract and what they were asking for based on what they actually got. And I understand Joe's problem. But this brings up a whole different statement that I've been making for years. When it comes to black people, we got to get screwed over first before we start saying, why come we don't have anything? We got to start coming together and doing. Everybody wants to be woke once they get something that's not favorable. When they realize that they're in a predatorial business, guess what? All business is predatorial. If you're a successful one, it's all predatorial. Every business is trying to be better than the next. Businesses and companies was not designed to make sure that everybody is happy. Charlemagne and what Joe Budden is saying is we're not the same. And he's right. Charlemagne is basically a radio disc head who came in on a radio deal. He's okay. He's a butt sniffer. This is what he does for a living. He's cool with everything that's happening. Everything that's going down, he's cool with. That's what he does for a living. They say, what you do for a living? Oh, I sniff butts. He's a butt sniffer. He's always somebody following behind another person. He's never been somebody to stand out on his own and make his own thing, because he's not built that way. He jumps on one coattail, sabotages another person, and jumps on that coattail. Burns that bridge and keeps moving. But every time he tries to start something of his own, it flops. What happened to his Brilliant Idiot podcast? Where are they Spotify deal? Huh? Oh, they didn't get one. Nobody offered them anything. Huh? But you're the great, talented, everybody gotta have Charlemagne. right? Everybody loves Charlemagne, right? He's super talented. He's so talented that everybody wanted him. But nobody wanted your podcast. MTV dropped your show. That same podcast show is the reason why your HBO deal fell to the floor. All the crazy things you said on that show that was very alarming for the new and awoke Me Too crowd over at HBO. But yet, you blame YouTubers. Though it was your voice, your audio, you recorded, that did you in. The Spanish fly talk, all that stuff you were saying, that was real wild. That did you in with HBO. Tell the truth. It had nothing even to do with that case. Had nothing to do with the case. You want to make it all about the case because that case came out and made a whole lot of attention and noise that brought up all these old recordings that other people had, all the tweets that you had on Twitter that you tweeted. Your tweets is what brought you down and derailed you. So you did in you, Charlemagne. But you don't talk about that. But you good at talking about everything else. You're good at painting that narrative. So it's easy to throw the rocks at Joe. So now he's going to be clamoring for another deal where I'm hearing Charlemagne's got a possible $10 million deal on the table where he's going to be interviewing some politician, but once again, he's going to be working for somebody else. And he's cool with that. And like Joe was saying, you don't have any clue of what's going on over here because you're not in this world, Charlemagne. See, the thing is, after watching how things worked over at Complex, when he got a Spotify deal, he was able to ask for certain things that he saw at Complex that he was not able to get. And what wasn't he able to get? Let's point that out. What wasn't he able to get at Complex when he had his show over there and it was badly negotiated? I mean, badly done as far as a deal because he didn't, once again, this was an unprecedented situation. So Joe didn't know what he was doing. Complex knew what they were doing because they were learning on the fly. They never expected this show to jump out and do the things that it did. So the show builds up a platform and it takes off with him and Tubby. And after that, Joe leaves the show because Joe realizes what's actually happening. What was actually happening is that Joe Sorry, something's in my eye, probably hair, because I just got my hair cut. But Joe realized we are not getting any of the ad money. Complex can bring in any ad deal they want to the show, to the program. We have no control and no say over what ad money comes into the show, and they getting the money and they splitting it up with Complex and everybody else. We don't work for Complex. We're not hired by Complex. We're independent contractors. So we're not even on the insurance policy. The insurance don't even cover us. We're hired talent. But they don't even have a contract with Complex. Joe was like, we're the talent. We built the show up. We're the reason why you guys are getting bumps in payments. And we're not getting any of that money. And he was fighting for him and Tubby. Saying, look, me and Tubby ain't getting no money here. He wasn't doing it just for him. So when he went to the Spotify deal, he knew right away in the contracts what he didn't want. I don't want anybody to bring any sponsorships on the Joe Budden podcast show unless Joe approves it. And if we approve the ad that comes on the show, if Spotify does an ad and it comes on the show, we got to get a cut. That's got to happen. So now Spotify wants to make a new deal. What they're going to do is saying, okay, we're going to give you that, but you got to have these benchmarks. You see, that's the trick. And that was in the original contract. See, in the original contract, it was there, but it had benchmarks. And the truth of the matter is, Joe and them didn't reach all of the benchmarks. They didn't. They overexceeded the first part of the deal, but then there were certain benchmarks that if they did this for a certain number of time, they would get this bump. Then they would get that bump. And then when you renegotiate and you don't like these benchmarks put in there and saying, hey, wait a minute now, if we go below this, then you can start talking different. But this is what I told you about how the music business, how they sabotaged Michael Jackson's album because it was worth more for them to get that Beatles catalog than it was for Michael Jackson's album to do good. Why would they want that? So why would they waste time to promote it? They're going to sabotage it as much as possible so it doesn't reach the benchmark. Spotify risk losing more if Joe Budden's podcast hit a lot of benchmarks. So I understand what Joe is fighting for. But here's the thing. People got to smarten up. When you talk about business and podcast hosting, all of these places, Barstool and Spotify, Apple, you got all of these platforms that are hosting. Where do we have a platform that's hosting a podcast show? You see what I'm saying? So you got to know what you're bringing to the table. Now, is Revolt going to back up the money truck and give Joe $20 million and say, Joe, we're going to give you this. Joe, we're going to give you that. If they do that, great. If a black-owned platform could do that, but don't think just because somebody's black that they got your best interest in mind. A black company will screw you over just like a white company would. All business is predatorial. You have to understand that. Hell, Target is a predatorial business. Walmart is a predatorial business. The ice cream parlor shop is a predatorial business. You see, the problem is this. Y'all are too scared to come together and put y'all money together and say, hey, let's work together and build our own streaming network company. We need to link up together and put it out so we can host our own streaming service. Let all us get together as brothers, and not only are we hosting, we're hosting our own product. We got our own show and we hosting it. Why they're not doing that? This is an early John Doe business. 2 years ago was the big podcast boom. Before then, podcast was not as popular. Then they started beating out radio stations because people would rather listen to a podcast show with no commercial interruptions than listen to the radio. They'd rather listen to talk radio more than they would listen to music. Now, that didn't fit well for the artists, who all these streaming services have to deal with the artists. Now, when you're dealing with them, you're dealing with record companies. And record companies have their own team, their marketing team, their lawyers. They have everybody there who has a plan. Right? And their plan is the record company gets 70%. So all the rest of the 30, you guys can fight for. But the record company's taking 70. Nope. My podcast is simply for entertainment purposes only. They're based on audio that we've already done. We put that out for the general public who don't have, or they too busy driving on the road. They want to listen to it and can't really look at the phones and all that stuff and the video. So we put that out on a podcast. Other than that, I don't want anything to do with the podcast business because it's not set up right. They don't even know what they're doing. Like Spotify, this was Joe was talking about was right. And this is what I was saying 2 years ago. The podcast business, everybody is just learning how to really get into the podcast game. What Gilly and them is doing is they keeping their own IP address, which is not common in this game. You got to basically lease out your IP address to them. Don't mean that the company owns it, but you're leasing it out to them so they get to dictate. Joe can own the show, but the IP address is being loaned or leased out to Spotify. That's part of the deal. They take that in exchange for money. You're paid for it. Now, like I said, when Joe Budden podcast hit, it hit hard. It hit heavy. They knocked it out the park. That first year, they killed it. Things tapered down in the second year. But that first 2 years, they knocked it out the park. Now, it's funny to me that they did the deal with Amy Schumer on the podcast deal, and they thought they did a great deal because everybody liked Amy Schumer. Amy Schumer's spark came and went out. Amy Schumer didn't cooperate. So her movies all flopped. Ever since Trainwreck, her comedy special on Netflix flopped. It didn't do what it was supposed to do. They wanted some of the money back after she caused all the controversy about she wanted equal pay with the men. She wanted Dave Chappelle money, Chris Rock money. She wanted all that, but her comedy special was weak. And they didn't hit a certain benchmark. But that didn't stop Spotify for getting Amy Schumer for a podcast show. Then her podcast show didn't do what they thought it was going to do. But this is what I got to say to Joe. Joe, you're going to have to realize that you're trying to depend on, you're saying, okay, now we got to do it with the black man, and the black man's got to do this, and the brother man, and we got to get this right, and black, and black. So, okay, we're going to do it all black. That's great, right? You keep talking about doing this with the white guy and working with the white guy. The black guy will screw you just like the doggone white guy. What ain't going to screw you is the black and white, the paperwork, the contracts, the deals. Talking about there was no negotiation. We didn't even negotiate. Then what do you want? Because if whatever terms you want, if they saying no and turning their back on it, they must be very okay with you walking. And they're willing to risk you walking out the door. Because they feel like the value is not worth them paying you what you think you're worth. And what you thinking you're generating and what you probably have generated. But if you thinking that they're going to give you general wealth of the company, it's not going to happen. They're not going to do that. If you look at Nike, Michael Jordan is nowhere near the top shareholder in Nike. Nowhere near. All the shareholders in Nike, Michael Jordan is nowhere on the board. But yet, his shoes are the top selling shoes in that company's history. To this day. He sells the damn shoes. But he's not even in the top shareholder of Nike. You got Vanguard, you got Swoosh, Unlimited LLC, you got Mark, you got Phil, Andrew. Those are the three top Nike shareholders. Jordan brand ain't nowhere near it. Michael Jordan kids got to listen and take orders from Nike. And they work for Jordan brand. But Nike dictates to them what they got to do. That's why the Marcus walked. He said, I can't work for Jordan brand. I ain't gonna do it. No, Mike took equity in the shoe. What are you talking about? Mike had equity in the shoe. So Mike has his own brand, so it's worth billions. Now, we're talking about billions of dollars. Michael's getting billions off of the shoes. Like, his shoes are making about $200 million a year easy. You know, but Mike should be getting more. He should be getting a lot more money. Michael Jordan got way more and bigger investments, or just as big as his Jordan shoe line, that you guys just don't even know about. Michael Jordan's invested in a lot of things that is generating tons of money a year. That's the reason he's a billionaire. So it's not like Michael Jordan is hurting, but I'm saying this man built Nike. But yet, Pat Knight, you got Pat Knight, Mark, Andrew, all those guys, they are the shareholders. And all the other shareholders in the company, those guys are the ones that are dictating the laws, the rules, everything. But Jordan is the one that makes it go. But my thing is this: instead of worrying about, man, we got to get the black guy to do it, we got to go work with a black guy. No, what you got to do is make sure the paperwork is right. If you want to work with black people, good. All you guys should have came together. The podcast game is open and it was brand spanking new. But what the problem is that you guys are not putting your own money. It's less costly to start up a podcast. All you need is less than $1,200 to get the material to start. So it's very less costly to set that up. Only thing that's just going to cost you really is the DSP if you're going to have all this streaming, all this stuff coming through your network. That's going to cost you money. Everybody needed to come together. Why don't all these guys who making all this money in this industry and all of these people, and they're supposed to be friends, all these guys are all boys. Why y'all not teaming up together to do business? To say, okay, all these people are hosting these websites or these streaming platforms like Tidal, right? Tidal was supposed to be that. But when you look at the ownership of Tidal, who did you see? The only black people you saw there was Jay and Beyonce. What happened to the Kanye's, the Nicki Minaj's, and all them? There was a sham. They shammed you. So it wasn't real ownership and it wasn't a real partnership. What they should have did, and because it's a John Doe business and everybody got to get ripped off or something that they don't like, that they turn down and they mad or they disgruntled because it didn't go the way they wanted to when they said, oh, we wanted this. Oh, we're not going to do that. We turned it down. Okay, you turned it down. That's fine. But now you got to move because they said, okay, good luck to you. Now you got to move to a whole nother platform in a couple of weeks. Now, what are you going to do when this happens all again? Are you going to get smarter each time something like this happens and realize that whatever you want, you need to have it in the paperwork right away? Needs to be in black and white and get that approved. Because if you don't have it in the black and white, it ain't going to matter. That's the key. And that's why I said Charlemagne does not even have the frame of reference to even speak on what's going on there. If you're not going to speak in detail based on what's happening with the situation, because I understand it. I understand Joe's position. And when it comes to this situation with him and Charlemagne, Joe is correct. And when he talked to him, it's like, dude, you talking to me as if you know what's going on. And you don't. And then when someone tells you, the person is telling you exactly what's going on, you basically siding with the other side. Like, man, look, they paying you the money. Just take the money, man. You don't even know what the hell you talking about. Like he said, you don't know what I'm fighting for, and I just told you what I'm fighting for. It makes more sense. But you got to understand who you're telling it to. You're talking to Charlemagne. This guy knows nothing but to follow other people. He's never been a guy to make it nothing on his own. He's always been a guy running around like a dog sniffing somebody else's butt. That's all he does. He was behind Wendy Williams. Then he starts sniffing behind Envy. He starts sniffing behind everybody and starts making his own shows. But every time he want to go out and branch out on his own because he thinks he's a big shot and his name is something, he's big, his shows fail. He failed. And then he go rolling back. He been trying to lead a Breakfast Club for 10 years. He been trying to lead a Breakfast Club for 10 years. MTV 2, his show over there. What happened? That was MTV 2. You couldn't even make it over there. So how you gonna talk to Joe about what he need to do for a show and this and that, and all you do is run around waiting for a bag? Oh, don't worry. On the Patreon, it gets way more just uncut. No, he didn't even get to the doors of HBO. He didn't. It wasn't like they walked him out of HBO. He walked himself out of HBO. He trying to blame that whole case that he had for the reason why all this happened and sabotage his HBO deal. That's not what happened, Joe. I'm going to tell you, Joe, that's not what happened. That didn't blow his deal. That opened a lot of eyes. But HBO investigated that. That's not why his show was rejected. And they decided to go in another direction. He never got in the door. His deal was rejected because of his audio of him saying very misogynistic things, Spanish fly stories, his tweets that he put out on Twitter. Tweets will destroy you and get you fired. They had just fired the guy from what's his name? The Suicide Squad. They just got rid of him for all his tweets. What you think they was going to do to Charlemagne? So if HBO and all them, they let him go, Warner Brothers had to let go, what was his name? I forgot his name, but they had to let him go. What you think was going to happen to Charlemagne? Charlemagne wanted to blame that situation and then blame YouTubers. No, your voice, your tweets did you in. You did it to yourself. You blew up your HBO deal because of all the stuff you did in the past, because you had to go and wash down and wipe out all that stuff you did. That's why you walked away and was walking away from that Brilliant Idiots podcast. Because all the stuff that was on there that you had already did when you were Charlemagne, the God, saying all that goofy stuff. Now it was coming back to hang you when you trying to go all political and change your shirt for money. Don't look, you are not in the same boat. As Joe said, we are not the same. He self-made, built his platform. Back before anybody, when it was Apple, when it was AOL dial-up, AOL Messenger, Joe was out here doing social medias, all kind of little podcast stuff. He was doing all those videos back then. Okay? You, like he said, you just got a YouTube channel like a year ago. Stop it. He's talking about ownership. But here's the thing, Joe. You tried to make it about color. It's not about color. Because I told you, the brother man will do you in just like the other man. And don't think that he won't. If the paperwork ain't right, that's all that matters. That's the only black and white that's going to matter is the paperwork. The verbiage in the paperwork. Whatever you want, put the verbiage in the paperwork. Write it down. No, because if you're not hosting, see, the thing is, if you're going to host it, you got to have a team in place. You got to have a ad market revenue team. You got to have all these things in place. See, everybody wants to take the bag. They want to take the money. That's why they don't have any money. The Baby is one of the top rappers in the game right now, right? The Baby. He had the #1 album, streaming album, when it came out, 2 #1 albums. Guess how much the Baby is worth right now? Guess how much the Baby net worth is? His net worth is at an estimate of $3 million. $3 million. That's his estimated net worth. $3 million. Why? Because he don't own anything. They're taking the bag. So now they thinking, okay, I'm going to get in out of this deal. No, you not. You got another 7 albums to deal. You're going to have 7 albums and won't be able to renegotiate for another 3 to 4. And about that time, your career going to be over. They're going to move on to the next guy. Little Baby's in the same spot. They got to pay 3 other record companies. You see, this is what happens when you don't own anything. Hit the like button, people. Hit the like button. Now, if you want to change the game, the podcast game came in and changed 2 years ago because it was not a format that they even knew was monetizable. They didn't even understand how to monetize it. That's why Joe said Spotify didn't know anything. Nobody did. So you can't really blame Joe for saying, oh, he got a bad deal when it was really unprecedented at the time of what he was doing. So that I give Joe, because he's right about that. At that time, that was 2 years ago when they were starting this thing out, when these other music companies decided that they were going to put podcasts on because podcasts started to blow up. See, streaming networks make money by keeping people on. Audience retention is how they make their money. This is how they push their ads, having you on longer. This is why they push certain artists' music, because they figure everybody, millions of people are going to listen to these songs. So we need to have these songs on here and feature them because this is going to get us a lot of play. When Drake comes out with a new album, they're going to push Drake's new album because Drake's new album is going to get a lot of play. But an album is about, 1 hour to 45 minutes. How long? And that's if you decide to play the whole album all the way through, over and over again. Then some people go to their favorite songs, they play those over and over and over. So you start seeing all the hits. But the audience retention is how long they stay on there. Now, if you stream a podcast show, people listen to a podcast show and it dwarfs an album because podcast shows are usually 2 hours long. Some of them are even 3 hours long. And people listen to them for 45 minutes, an hour, 2 hours. Hell, y'all been listening to me for 44 minutes with no notifications going out. So they're looking at those numbers and they're saying, we got to get these shows. If we start putting podcast shows on, hell, we don't got to pay the 70% to the record companies for the show. We're saving a lot of money here. And we're making a lot. We don't really need the music. This is the new avenue. We can find a way to do this. And once they figure that out, you start seeing podcast shows pop up like teeth out of a popcorn machine or something. Teeth popping out. Blah, 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 blah. So that's what they're doing. The game has been rigged. Right? Because it's a John Doe business. So when everybody was doing this, why come the brothers, all these artists, people that got money, why didn't they all come together and say, hey, let's get into this podcast game. Let's come and build a platform. We're going to make it fair for the people out there. So I don't want to hear, why come all these NBA players, NFL players, put your money together and start coming up with these programs and these platforms of ownership where you own instead of hosting, instead of having the podcast on somebody else's show and they just pay you the money. And you like, yeah, I own my podcast though. Yeah, but they hosting. Yes, but it's like saying, okay, Gilly owns his podcast show, but Barstools is hosting it. Why can't we host our own podcast? Because we want to have the guaranteed money and don't want to take the risk of the financial responsibilities and all of the other responsibilities that comes along with promoting it. Why? You're doing all the work. You see what I'm saying? So I understand it and I'm riding with Joe. Because it's all true, but they got to understand something. You're not at war with any of them. And I don't even know what Tubby was talking about. I don't know what's going on with him and Star. I guess I don't know if he paid Star to do what he doing. I'm out of that. So I don't have no comment on that whatsoever. That's somebody just clout chasing, doing what he do. That's what I'm saying, Ed. They got to come to the Patreon, the Casino for Life Patreon. Y'all need to be over there today for sure, because a lot of uncut stuff is going on there today. I mean, it's time. It's overtime. You know, I'm sick of it. How long people got to get ripped off in the music business? I mean, really. You saw what they did to get the stuff back from Mike. You know, they don't want us having that kind of power and that kind of responsibility, that type of ownership. Told you, Michael Jordan don't own, he ain't even in the top shareholders of Nike. And this is Michael Jordan. So if we are not coming together, instead of rivaling each other, this is why they put the rivalry together and they always rival us. You never see them rival any of the other people. Everybody else is partnered up. I don't hear Justin Timberlake rivaling Robin Thicke. They don't do that. They didn't put Chris Stapleton in there with Lane Staley. That wasn't going to happen. They ain't going to rival them. In the verses, I haven't seen two white people in the verses battle yet. But with us, we got a rival. We gotta always versus, and that teaches division. Okay, that teaches distrust of your own and division. While they teach solidarity and promote solidarity, we're promoted with division. To stay divided, saying I got mines, and not want to work with the other person. So this way, you're going to always be a servant to the dollar, to somebody else. And if you try to branch out and do something on your own people and other people around them will jump on you and tear you down for wanting to do something different. Something that's not in the status quo. So hopefully all of y'all subscribe to the page. Hopefully all y'all are on the Patreon. I'll see all of y'all today because it's finna get uncut over there because y'all missed a lot. But I got some of it for y'all. Y'all gonna be blown away listening to that.